record on this. All right, everybody, welcome to this presentation, The Lineage of Bailey. This is the second time that I've done this presentation, and I am really, really excited to be here with you all to share with you this research that I call They All Have Names and Proud Histories. And I suggest that you take notes because there's going to be a lot of information that you hear, and I want you to write down questions and write down just anything you hear that you go, wow, I wish you could say more about that, because there's so much research that I had to really condense it and like reduce it down. And so on this slide, the legacy of Bailey, which is, I can, on my maternal, my grandmother's side, that's the legacy. And so it says here, from Perry and Virginia, or Jenny Bailey, to all of us. You're going to find out who Perry and Virginia Bailey are. So I'm sorry, I can't see the thing here. Okay, great. Somebody wants to get in. Let me go back. In 1835, our ancestors were among the first known settlers in the southeastern part of Arkansas, and they are to be celebrated. Right here, I just want to do a moment of in memoriam, because many of our ancestors have transitioned and they have passed on. And so I just want to take a moment of, about 30 seconds to acknowledge them. You can speak their names out loud where you are. If you would like to do so, I will be doing so. Speak their names, our ancestors. Your legacy is really in every life you touch. It's going so fast, y'all. Hold on, I don't want it to go that fast. I don't know why it's going so fast. Hold on a second. Let me stop share. Hold on a second. It's moving too fast. I don't know why it's going so fast. Okay. Stop share. Somebody's trying to get in. Hold on a second. Okay. Let me go back here. Let me go back here. Let me go back here. Escape. Okay. Screen share. Boom. Okay. Let's share. Why not? Why won't you screen share? Come on, share screen. Go away. Go away. Share. Boom. Okay. Shamika Spencer. That's who was trying to get in. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go this route because it's just easier. Today, we're focusing our time on people and events prior to 1900 from the paternal lineage. And I want to put on here Bennie Bailey because I put his name on everything because he was more of a point of reference for many of the people here. Bennie and Ethel Bailey. And then I could just take my grandmother's name off because it doesn't matter. So we're focusing our time on this. You're going to meet family you may have never heard of. You're going to hear stories of how our ancestors arrived in Arkansas and eventually made it their home, how they were forced to flee to Texas during the Civil War because the slave owners were trying to evade being captured by the Union Army, how they bought and sold land in Arkansas, and lots of it, how one of our ancestors was freed from slavery in 1825, how the last name Bailey came into being, and if we have time, I'll share my DNA results. Now sit back, relax, and let's go on a journey of discovering our roots. Now, how did I get started? In September of 2019, I stumbled on this message here. I was doing some research and I was searching for my great-great-grandfather, Commodore Perry Bailey. And he's also related to you all, but you'll find out how in a moment. And I looked on a site called Desha County Queries. And I got this message dated the March 3rd, 2003. And it says Bailey right here in the red. And this person said, I am looking for information about my great-grandfather, Commodore Perry Bailey. So of course that stopped me in my tracks because I knew from my grandmother, Ethel Bailey, that Commodore Perry Bailey was her father, Jerry's father. So this note stopped me in my tracks. And so I went on to look at the rest of it and it had the person's name at the bottom, Miss Chris Eatman. And this is Chris Eatman today. At 84, she's the oldest living member of our family on the Bailey line. And she lives in Little Rock, Arkansas. She started the family research in 1979.
And I never thought I would ever live to be in my 80s. I never thought so. But somehow I'm still here, although I'm kind of frail in health, but I'm still here with most of my mind. Clear mind.
And when did you start doing this family history research?
Well, when did you see?
1979.
1979.
I think that's when you started going to the buildings, but in your mind.
Oh, in my mind, I was inspired to do this after so long and hearing that I wasn't going to amount to nothing, and I was, I wanted to see what type of people I come from. I didn't know how to, because my folks wouldn't talk about nothing. And so after Alex Haley had done his research, supposedly, and the roots come out, I said, well, maybe I could do something like that too, to see who I'm from, what kind of people was in my family. So I remember crying. I had pulled over by this cemetery. And I was just crying my heart out. I was so heartbroken because I didn't know who I was, what I was. I wanted to amount to something. So I was just sitting there at the gate of this cemetery crying almost until the rain had stopped falling. And I cranked up my car and started on home. And I made up my mind I was going to find some way to look back and see who my family was. And that's what inspired me. So
Chris Eatman, to give a relationship context, for those of you who are connected to Bennie Bailey, who was my grandmother Ethel's brother, Bennie Bailey's father was Jerry Bailey. And Jerry Bailey had a brother named Nicholas Bailey, who was Chris Eatman's grandfather. So she is connected to us through our Bailey lineage. Now, once I talked to Chris Eatman, it sent me on a much bigger search. And so where did I do my research? Well, I traveled to Arkansas, to the Arkansas State Archives. I did a lot of research on Ancestry. I went to the State House in Little Rock. I went on FamilySearch.com, and I traveled to Atlanta to Emory University that has quite a bit of documentation of one of our relatively, he is a politically connected family member. Let's see, hold on. I see your hand, Kaylee. Let me see how do I get to your hand while I have this thing on. Kaylee, go for it. Can you open your mic, Kaylee? You had your hand up? No, let's see. Kaylee, was that a mistake? Okay, I'm gonna assume that's a mistake. So now, so there are all these black and white pictures on this screen, and you don't know who any of these people are, but you are related to most of the people in these pictures, and you're going to find out how. But let's first take a stop at Bennie Bailey. Most of you have, I'm sure, heard of Bennie Bailey, in whatever way you are connected to him. He was born in 1909 in Kelso, Arkansas, son of Jerry Bailey. Okay. I know Bennie Bailey because my grandmother, Ethel Bailey, was his sister. She married a man named Jordan, but she was born a Bailey in May 11th of 1911 in Kelso. And then this is just a picture of Ethel. There she is on the couch with the red, that's her, with all of her children, including my mother and her husband, Julius. My mother is the little one sitting right next to my grandmother with her flower in her hair. That's actually my mother when she was little. Now, how many siblings or how many children total were there between Bennie and Ethel, and their father was Jerry? Well, there were actually 10 Bailey children born to Jerry Bailey by 2 different women. 8 of those children were with Macie Bailey, and 2 were with Lily Ann Bailey. Okay, here's a quick quiz. How far back do you think I was able to trace our ancestors through Bennie and Ethel Bailey's paternal lineage? Do you think I went far back as 1850, 1870, 1814, or 1783? Well, first of all of these dates are pretty far back. And for African Americans, you know, because of our complex history in this country, make sure you write something down. Make sure you write something down. Take a guess, take a wild guess. It's just even extraordinary that these are the 4 dates to select from, because many people can't go back, you know, too far. So take a wild guess. And the correct answer, you're going to have to wait and see. I'll surely reveal it to you. Now, Ethel Bailey and Bennie Bailey were born between 1909 and 1911. And you know this state, most of you know it's Arkansas, because probably most of you are living there. And Ethel and Bennie's father, Jerry Bailey, was also born in the state of Arkansas in 1867. 1867, he was born in Arkansas. And you're going to find out who his parents were. The end of slavery, the official end of slavery varies by date. But we're going to go with December 18th. It depends on really between 1863 and June of 1865. But officially, they determined it December 18th, 1865 with the 13th Amendment. So Jerry Bailey, Bennie and Ethel's father, but Bennie Bailey specific to most of you, Jerry Bailey was born in 1867, 2 years after the official ending of the Civil War, and thus he was never enslaved. His parents were, but Jerry Bailey was not. And as well, all of his additional siblings after him were not enslaved. They were born free. However, Jerry's older brother, the firstborn, Perry Bailey, was born right in the middle of the end of slavery. Now, how are you related to Bennie Bailey? Was he your parents' father? Was he your father? Was he your uncle? Was he your great-grandfather? Fill in the blank. Like, how are you connected in the Bailey line? I already spoke to 2 cousins, one who said that Bennie's daughter Ethel was her grandmother, and Marquise, who said Clara was the daughter of really the second Lily Bailey, right, Marquise? Because Lily was the daughter of Lily Ann. You could just nod your head. Yes. So just go through and say, well, how am I connected to just the Bailey? If it's not Bennie Bailey, you know, which Bailey and how are you connected? So I like to do a little sneak peek. So I see if you're paying attention. What state was Bennie Bailey born in and what year? I'll give it to you. He's born in Arkansas in 1909. How many years after the end of slavery was Jerry Bailey born? 2 years. He was born in 1867. And is Jerry Bailey Bennie's father or cousin? You guys know Jerry Bailey is Bennie Bailey's father. So just take those notes so you can just go look. It's a lot of information. Make sure you keep yourself muted. Jerry Bailey, Bennie's father, was one of 10 children. He had 9 brothers and sisters. That's a huge family, but they had large families. So Perry, which was the oldest, was born in 1865. Jerry, who was Bennie's father, was born in 1867, followed by Ned in 1869, Isaac in 1871, James in 1872, Nicholas, who I mentioned earlier and said that was Chris Eatman's grandfather, 1874, Jesse in 1876, Ruth Ann in 1878, Betty in 1880, and Sanford in 1882. 10 children total. Now, who were Jerry and his siblings? Remember, Jerry is Bennie Bailey's father, but who was Jerry and his siblings? Who were their parents? Could I find that information out? And where were they born? Well, to do that, I had to go to the census. So I went to the 1880 census for at the time, it was called the Franklin Township in Arkansas. And these red arrows point to the name Jerry Bailey. And at this time, he was 13 years old. So at this time, Bennie Bailey, or even my grandmother Ethel, they weren't even thought of because Jerry was just a little boy, 13 years old. And all the way over here where the red circle is, it says these 2 columns ask where their parents from. And so it tells me that their parents, the mother was born in Arkansas and the father was born in Virginia. So I'm like, okay, so I now have some information to go on. I know where Jerry's parents were from. Now, before we find out who Jerry Bailey's parents were and where they were born, again, I like to keep bringing this back. What state was Bennie born in? He was in Arkansas. How many years after the end of slavery was Jerry Bailey born? 2. And is Jerry Bailey Bennie's father or cousin? I'm in a bunch of genealogy groups and people, I used to assume that my ancestors were all enslaved. I didn't really, up until 1865. I even thought that my great grandfather Jerry was as well, but of course I was wrong. So the parents of Jerry Bailey and his 9 siblings were a man named Commodore Perry Bailey and Ann Bowman Bailey. Commodore Perry Bailey, that's the name that I started searching for from the beginning. So let's just back up. Commodore Perry Bailey, I'm gonna just use the father, is Jerry Bailey's father. Jerry Bailey is Bennie Bailey's father. So you see the lineage. So sometimes it's hard for people to figure out, well, gosh, how do you go great, great, and great, 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 and 3 times removed great? So you'll begin to make the leap to figure out how many greats that is for you when you do and you can ask me like when we get to the Q&A at the end, and I'll try to help you if you can't figure it out. Well, where did Jerry Bailey's father, Commodore Perry Bailey, live before he got to Arkansas? Commodore Perry Bailey was born enslaved in Virginia in 1834. He was born in 1834. Oh my goodness. How do we know this? Am I making that up? Well, no. When you go to the 1870 federal census, so first let me explain the 1870 census. The 1870 census was the first census where Black people were listed by their own name Black formerly enslaved people were listed by their name on the census, their whole name, their complete name, whatever they were calling themselves. So the 1870 census is the first and, it's really the best census right after slavery had ended. So remember, technically slavery ended December 1865 by the 13th Amendment. So this was after 5 years. And so it also lists the person's age and birth. So let's look at the 1870 census where Commodore and his 2 brothers were listed. So the very first name with the little asterisk by it at the top says Jim Bailey, 41 years old. He's listed as mulatto and, he's listed as male and Black. Now also sometimes they were listed as mulatto and sometimes they were listed as Black. It just sort of depended, I guess, on the census taker. So anyway, Jim was listed And then Commodore Bailey is listed right here in the middle. And underneath Commodore is his wife's name, Anne, and then their children, Perry, who was 6, and Jerry, who was 4. So this is the 1870 census. It also lists 2 other kids, Ned and Isaac, but they were free at this point. And then all the way over here where this big red arrow is in the middle, it says place of birth. Commodore says he was born in Virginia. And that was consistent for every single census record I saw for him. He always said he was born in Virginia. And then the kids, it says they're born in Arkansas. Perry, Jerry, again, Jerry being Bennie Bailey's father. And the third name at the bottom is the third brother, Jim Bailey, Commodore Bailey, and Isaac Bailey. All were enslaved in Arkansas. Isaac was the youngest, born in 1847. Jim was the oldest, born in Virginia in 1827. I'll repeat that. Jim was born in 1827 in Virginia. Commodore, our ancestor direct, great-great-great-grandpa, was born in 1834 in Virginia. Their youngest brother, Isaac, was born in Arkansas, enslaved in 1847. Isaac is very interesting, you all. He's the one who actually became a politician, a Black politician during Black Reconstruction, y'all. And we're going to look at the whole thing. So in December of 1865, at the end of the Civil War, 4 million freed slaves had nothing more than the clothes on their back, pretty much. But I want to go back to this 1870 census. By 1870, Commodore Perry Bailey, that's Jerry Bailey's father, he listed his value at $100, which is quite a lot in 1870. So they were able to become free and start to make a living for themselves. And it's interesting the things that they did. In 1870, only about 20% of African Americans could read. On the 1870 and 1880 census, Commodore Perry Bailey indicates that he cannot read and write. His wife, Anne Bailey, was much younger than him, and she was age 23, but she also indicates she could not read or write. She was 23 in 1870 and he was 37. However, by 1880, all of their children, all of Commodore's children, including Bennie Bailey's father, Jerry, all were attending school and they all could read and write. They were all learning. They understood that education was upward mobility and they were committed to it. Education was very important to the Bailey family. 2 family members were the first to attend college in our family, including Bennie's father, Jerry Bailey. Bennie Bailey's father, Jerry Bailey, attended a school called the Normal College. He didn't graduate, but he did attend there and began college. Now, just a point of interest, by 1890, 1/2 of Black people between the age of 10 and 19 were literate, meaning they could read. They were determined to learn to read and do the things that were denied to them during their enslavement. Back to this question, how are you related to Bennie Bailey? Was he your parents' father? Was he your father? Was he your uncle? Was he your great-grandfather? And remember, Bennie Bailey, his father was Jerry Bailey. Jerry Bailey's father was Commodore Perry Bailey. But can I go even farther than that? Can I even say who Commodore Perry Bailey's father was? Remember, Commodore Perry Bailey was born in 1834. Let's see. Commodore Perry Bailey, Jerry Bailey's father, was born enslaved in Virginia. Who were his parents and how did Commodore get to Arkansas? Commodore Perry Bailey's parents were from Virginia and Maryland. I happen to live in Maryland. I literally don't live that far from where Commodore Perry Bailey's father was born and enslaved in Maryland. Commodore's father was named Perry Bailey. So you see the name, how the name was passed down. Commodore's father was named Perry Bailey. Then Commodore was named Commodore Perry Bailey. And clearly they liked the sound of Perry, because then Commodore named his first child Perry and his second child Jerry. So this is a family lineage or link. So Perry Bailey was born about 1783, and he was enslaved in Maryland in a county called Talbot County. How is Perry Bailey related to Bennie Bailey? Is he Bennie's father? Is he Bennie's uncle? Is he Bennie's cousin? Or is he Bennie's great grandfather? Again, it can be a lot to try to keep the second grade, first grade all in order. And I promise if you want to ask me a question, you can. So wait a minute, who are these people? Perry Bailey, born in 1783, is the father of Commodore Bailey. Commodore Perry Bailey, born in 1834, who is the father of Jerry Bailey, born in 1867, who is the father of Bennie Bailey, born in 1909. So this was just a cool way, hopefully, to help you see it visually. I know I'm a visual person. It really helps me to go, oh, I can see how it all tracks down. But then you have to figure out how you're related to Bennie Bailey, because I think most of you are in some way related to Bennie Bailey. So back to Perry Bailey. Perry Bailey was from Maryland, born about 1783. He was enslaved in Talbot County, Maryland. Before I tell you more about Perry Bailey, is it possible that we might be related to someone famous? Who else has the surname Bailey and was born and enslaved in Talbot County, Maryland? Frederick Douglass. His actual name is Bailey. He actually changed his name to Douglass to hide his identity. He was also enslaved in Talbot County, Maryland. And Frederick Douglass Bailey was born in 1818. I have no proof and evidence yet, although I'm still doing research to determine if possibly they may have been cousins, because Talbot County is very small. In the people who were enslaved there, it was just a small area. There weren't a lot of slaves in Maryland in the first place. So I'm still on the search for that. Now, who was Perry Bailey married to? Well, his wife was from a little county called Albemarle in Virginia, and her name was Virginia, but she went by Jenny Bailey, and her maiden name was Thomas. She was born about 1806, and she was enslaved in Virginia. Now, how do I know this? I'm going to show you how. Back to the 1870 census, as soon as my computer. Now, when we go to the 1870 census, again, that same Franklin Township at the time, that's what it was called. This big red arrow points to Jenny Bailey. She was 64. She was listed as mulatto. And in the second arrow on the right says she was born in Virginia. This home that she was counted in was just 6 houses on the same block away from where her sons lived, Commodore, Jim, and Isaac. So they were all living on the same house. I actually believe she was just visiting at a neighbor's house on the day. I used to count the census, so I kind of know how it works. But let's go back to the 1870 census. Yeah. So I was just showing you again, Jim Bailey, Commodore Bailey, and Isaac. Those are her sons, and they were all on the same street. So Virginia Jenny Bailey was born about 1806, but how did she and Perry Bailey end up in Arkansas? Which means, how did we all get here? Because they had to get to Arkansas for any of us really to end up existing. So Virginia Jenny Bailey was enslaved by a white man named John Campbell, and she and her husband Perry were brought to Arkansas in 1835. So I'm going to pause for a bit of Q&A before I continue, so you can ask me any questions, because I'm now going to tell you about, after this, I'm going to tell you about freedom papers, marriages, college, political positions, etc. But I do want a moment and stop so that you can, I'm going to unstop sharing the screen so I can see you. And you can ask any question right now, like something you're confused on, saying, I don't know how I'm connected to anybody, Denise. I'll try to help you and figure it out. So anybody, you can unmute yourself, just say your name, ask your question, and I will give it my best shot. And thank you again to everybody who joined on this presentation. Hi, Unique's Galaxy A21. I can only see stuff like that. I don't know most folks' name. Question, did you have a question? You waved your hand, Unique's Galaxy? Yes, you want to ask? Go ahead. Unmute yourself. Okay, I can see you, but let's see, are you unmuted or your sound is up? I know these darn contraptions. It won't let you talk. Hold on, let me see. Let me see. Oh, are you on a phone? Give me a thumbs up if you're on a phone. Yeah. So the functions are a little bit different on a phone. Let me see. Let me try to merge you with audio. Let me see. Hold on. Let me see. Okay, now unmute yourself. Can you unmute yourself? Give me a thumbs up if you can unmute. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Boom tick.
Yeah, I was just saying hi. I was just saying hi. I was down there like 2 weeks ago, but I was supposed to come back for the family reunion. I couldn't make it.
Okay.
So, you know.
You have a question?
I was honestly, no, I was just saying hi to finally meet someone else in my family, tell you the truth. That's
no
all.
problem. We're going to do introductions at the end, so I just want to use this moment for questions. Awesome. Thank you. Galaxy S, that's Ray. Okay, unmute yourself. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right. I don't know how I'm related to all that.
I'm going to tell you. First, tell me who's your father.
Okay.
On the Bailey. It might be mother.
It'd probably be my grandmother. First, my mother is Lily Hart.
Okay.
Clara May Hart.
So great. So here we go. I'm going to tell you. So your mother is Lily Hart. Her mother was Lily Ann. No?
My mother was Clara May Hart.
Oh, your mother was Clara May, and her mother was Lily.
Lily Hart.
And then Lily's Hart, and Lily's mother was Lily Ann.
Okay. And Lily Ann is what to Bailey?
Lily Ann was married to Jerry Bailey first, before he was married to Macie.
Okay.
Okay. And so then Lily Ann became a Bailey, married Jerry. Jerry's father was Commodore. Commodore's father was Perry, and on we go. So Lily Ann had Lily, who had Clara May, who was your mother.
Right. So that would make Commodore Bailey like my great
grandfather. Correct. So you're
4 of them.
Correct. 4 times removed. And Perry would be 5 times removed.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, okay.
Hey, Denise.
Yeah, who is that? Lois?
This is Lois. Now the guy that just finished, he's on there now. Now is his mother his grandmother was Lily Hart?
That's Ray. Yeah, Ray's grandmother was Lily Hart.
Oh, okay. So he's Little Lily's.
Yeah, Little Lily, exactly.
Okay, that's who I'm trying to see. Yeah, right. Little Lily. Yeah, cause Aunt Lily Hart was my daddy, Bennie Bailey's sister.
Correct.
Yeah, lived in Pine Bluff. So that's Little Lily's son. Okay.
Correct. Well, Little Lily's grandson. That's Little Lily's grandson.
Okay. And this is what I want to ask. I think I'd asked you this before. Now, Aunt Lily, my daddy's sister.
Yes.
She didn't have the same mother as my dad.
No, she did not. She had her mother was Lily Ann.
Okay.
Actually, her I can even tell you her maiden name. It was hold on, because I have it on the hold the phone. I can tell you her maiden name. What was her maiden name? 1 second. Jerry. Haywood. Her maiden name was Haywood. She was Lily Ann Haywood before she married Jerry Bailey.
Was Lily Haywood?
Correct. Lily Ann Haywood before she married Jerry Bailey.
Oh, okay.
And then she married the second time and married Macie Bailey and had 8 children.
Okay. Okay. So did she die? I wonder.
She eventually. Oh, I don't know. I just know.
That's what I'm trying to see. The grandmother Macie raised Aunt Lily.
Well, I can tell you this much, that on 2 census records, Lily, Ray's grandmother, was listed on, which would be little Lily, was listed in the census with Macie and Jerry. So they were very, yeah, they were very aware of, you know, I mean.
Okay, but that's what I was saying. That's what I was saying. Wanted that Lily Haywood die and grandma.
No,
I'm talking about Grandma Macie raised Lily.
no, her mother, little Lily's mother, she stayed alive until, I mean, she died, you know, she died up in age. I actually have her.
And you know, that's strange because, you know, my dad never did mention that they had a different mother.
Well, you know,
never.
I think that the little message from our cousin Chris, she said it best. She said, my folks wouldn't talk about nothing. And I said,
no, my dad really didn't talk, or he talk a whole lot about, you know, just a little bit. He knew he had 2 other sisters and brothers, but I mean 2 other siblings, but he never would really talk about it.
Yeah, so I think it was just par for the course, not for all people, but for many people, they just were trying to just, you know, keep going, keep
survive.
survive. Okay, Ray, thank you so much, cousin Lois. Ray,
Can you hear me?
yes, sir.
Yeah, my grandmother, Lily, she moved to New York. My mom came and got her. Clara came and got her. And she passed away in New York, though.
Okay, so her mother, your grandmother, Lily's mother, Lily Ann, she actually did die in Arkansas.
Okay.
I just have her, like, you know, I just researched everybody as far as I could go. So yeah, I mean, if you want to know, I can even tell you when she passed, like at another time and stuff. I'm happy to share as much as I have gathered on any family member with anybody.
Right. Yeah. And it seemed like most of us, from my mother, was up in New York. And now I'm in.
What's interesting is that my grandmother Ethel, she knew your mother, Claire May.
Oh, she was something.
Yeah, she knew. She would mention Claire May. You know, she would talk about Claire May. When we were young, I would hear your mother's name mentioned.
Yeah, she was the
because she was Claire May was my grandmother's niece. My grandmother said that was my niece. Yeah, she was my niece, Claire May.
All right.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ray. Anyone else? Just like, okay, Ariel, you straight, thumbs up. Everybody who's straight. Shamika Spencer, I see you straight. Let me get a thumbs up. Y'all, I'm actually a college professor, so I teach like this all the time. So if I sound a little bit like a teacher, I'm not. It's just I've been a teacher for 21 years, so it's just literally like in my blood how I show up. Hi.
Hey, Denise, this is Lois again. I want to know who is that Spencer person you're talking to?
Okay, Shamika Spencer. So tell me, how are you? Take me down your lineage. You have to unmute yourself. I'm gonna ask you to unmute yourself. Okay.
This is actually Noah's nephew.
Say again.
It's actually my aunt. I'm a nephew of Aunt Lois. Stella's my mom.
Stella's his mom.
Stella's my mom.
Oh, okay. That's my nephew and his girlfriend. Okay.
Okay. Lois on here just because Lois on here like verifying, like, listen.
Okay, I saw he used his girlfriend's phone.
Thank you, cousin.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna jump back in, everyone. Oh wait, Ariel, you got one? Okay, now let me see. We can't hear you, Ariel. Let me see if I can get your audio. Let's see. Let's try it again. Try to unmute yourself, Ariel. Oh, we still can't hear you. Technology be our friend. It's still acting weird. And I was just talking to you earlier.
I know.
You can hear me. There you go.
Okay. I was gonna say my grandmother Ethel Bailey is here watching too. I'm just gonna say this because her name is not on here.
Okay, no problem. So now Bennie Bailey is your grandmother Ethel's father, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And again, as I said, my grandmother Ethel Bailey is who your grandmother is named after, because my grandmother was Bennie Bailey's sister.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's all.
Okay. All right. So here we go. Back in. Write down stuff, y'all. Now, don't just let it slide by. Okay. Let me move this up. Now, next up, the legacy continues. Now we're going to talk about freedom papers, marriages, college, political positions during Black Reconstruction, building schools, farming, and owning land. So, how far back so far have we traced our ancestors' presence in this country? How far back? I said it was Perry Bailey was born in about 1783. It's really about a 10-year spread between 1783 and 1793. It's really that big a gap, but it's about, we can go with 1783. So certificate of freedom from slave to free. So there were a couple of ways that enslaved Black people were freed before slavery ended. And one was to receive a certificate of freedom. The certificate of freedom was just like our driver's license. You had to carry it around with you everywhere to prove you were no longer enslaved. And so some enslavers, when they died, they would free their slaves. Well, that happened to our ancestor, Perry Bailey. His enslaver died, and Perry Bailey received a certificate of freedom. Now, before I share with you the certificate of freedom, there's a wild guess here about where did our last name Bailey come from. Historic research shows that 85% of formerly enslaved people did not take their former owner's surname. I used to assume that every enslaved person took the name of their enslaver. Like if my enslaver was Smith, then I would be Smith. But that's actually not true. 85% of formerly enslaved Black folks, they did not take their former owner's last name. And that is what I believe happened with our ancestor, Perry Bailey, when he was freed. So before I go to this slide, I'm going to actually show you. It's hard to read this, but I transcribed it. This is the actual screenshot of Perry Bailey's certificate of freedom that he received in 1825. He was in Maryland and his enslaver died. And that meant that he would become free. So let me read the transcription. That certificate says, the state of Maryland, Talbot County, I do hereby certify and make known to all persons whom it doth or may concern that by the last will and testament of George M.P. Dawson of Talbot County, proven in my office on the 13th day of June in 1804. In other words, George Dawson was Perry Bailey's enslaver, and he filed this in 1804, saying that when he died, Perry Bailey could be free. And it says further, a certain Negro man who calls himself Perry Bailey, of a very dark complexion, 5 feet 9 inches and 1/4 inches high, about 52 years of age, has a scar on the right side of his forehead about 1.5 inches long, nearly in the shape of a half moon, and one other scar in the back of his head about 1 inch long. His freedom to commence at the death of George M.P. Dawson. Then it just goes on to say, his identity to my satisfaction affirmed by John Kemp, meaning somebody verified this, like somebody vouched for it. And then it's the Register of Wills and Courts, his name is on the bottom. So let's just go back to the actual document. So I received this document from the Arkansas State Archives, Maryland State Archives here in Maryland. It was actually filed and on file. And when I did the research and contacted the archives, they sent me the copy of the certificate of freedom. And there were only 2 Perry Baileys listed as enslaved in all of Talbot County, Maryland. The other Perry Bailey is actually the brother of Frederick Douglass. And this Perry Bailey is our ancestor. Now, this part I have yet to verify, but it is believed that Perry Bailey's parents were also enslaved by George Dawson. And this is documented in a couple of places, but I couldn't get any actual hard evidence, but it is very much believed that Perry Bailey's parents were Peter and Rose Chestnut. So if I can somehow end up validating that, we could go back even further than 1783. We probably could end up going back to around 1750 or 1740, that our ancestors are go that far back in this country. Our first recorded marriage, the first recorded marriage in our Bailey lineage was actually Commodore Perry Bailey and Ann Bowman, who became Ann Bailey. They were married May the 14th of 1866. 1866, remember, slavery officially ended December of 1865. So 5 months later, they were getting married. And I'll read to you what it says. This is to certify that John Dickerson, duly authorized, regularly acting minister of the gospel, on the 14th day of May 1866, duly joined in marriage Commodore Perry Bailey of Chico County, I'm probably messing that up, Chico County of Arkansas, age 32, and Ann Bowman, age 20. Both parties have lived together as husband and wife since January 1863, according to the former overseer and customs of the church. And I declare them husband and wife. So although they got their formal marriage certificate in 1866, they indicate they were living as husband and wife during slavery in 1863, January. They were actually, to them, they were married, January 1863. And this is all written on their marriage certificate. And there are a couple of other early marriages. Isaac Bailey, who was Commodore's youngest brother, born in 1847, married his wife in March of 1870. And then Sanford Bowman, who was actually Commodore's wife's father, he married another woman, July of 1866. So now I'm going to look a little bit at the enslavers. You can find out some information by actually studying the enslavers of your enslaved ancestors. And I'm just going to remind you that Perry Bailey was enslaved in Maryland. He was enslaved by George M.P. Dawson. And Virginia, Jenny Bailey, who was married to Commodore, was enslaved in Virginia. She was enslaved by John Campbell. So this little record on the left, the white, shows that John Campbell bought a whole bunch of land in Arkansas in 1837. Quite a bit of land. He bought the land surrounding the Mississippi River Steamboat Landing, which later became Desha County. He bought the land for 25 cents an acre. And he established a plantation in that area on December 12, 1838. And he had an overseer named Oscar Bowles, who actually brought our ancestors from Virginia to Arkansas on a flatboat. And this just is a little map I put here to show how far that was. They traveled by river. So it was, well, for a straight shot, about 900 miles. And so this little text, I'll read it to you. Oscar Bowles came to this county in 1835, making the trip in a flatboat from Virginia, landing where Arkansas City now stands. And when there were only about 4 acres of cleared land, he brought with him the slaves belonging to John R. Campbell. And he worked for John Campbell as an overseer for 17 years. Okay, so that is written in the Goodspeed Report of Arkansas. And these are just some pictures of flatboats. I don't know exactly what kind of flatboat they came in, our ancestors, but it, you know, these were the flatboats that traveled the rivers in the 1800s. And so they weren't large boats. You know, John Campbell was a very wealthy white enslaver. And so he was able to bring them here. This is just a map showing the 1889 Desha County where Arkansas City was. That circle is roughly where our ancestors came to a plantation that was, it went by a couple of names. Yellow Bayou or Yellow Bend was the plantation, and Yellow Bend actually still exists, I think, as a municipality in Arkansas. And this is just a census schedule showing the wealth of John and his son Charles. They had wealth of over $28,000 in 1850, which included our ancestors as property at that time. However, in 1857, the plantation went up for sale. It had to be sold because John Campbell died, and John Campbell's sons were fighting over the property, and so anyway, they had to auction the actual plantation. This was pretty fascinating to find this document, and all of what they had and held. I'm not going to read the whole thing, and we can read some of it later if somebody is interested in it. During the Civil War, our ancestors were taken from Arkansas and moved 4.2 miles away. They were moved from Arkansas to Texas to try to avoid the Union Army. And this is also documented in the Goodspeed report. And it says, during the war, Oscar Bowles moved his and Campbell's Negroes to Crooked Bayou, where they remained for 1 year. And then Mr. Campbell then took his Negroes to Texas, and they only brought them back after they lost the war. So our ancestors literally packed up and they had to go because they were enslaved. They were trying to avoid, being caught. And so this was an interesting also piece of history after the Civil War, 1867, Charles Campbell, which was John Campbell's son, he's now listed as an employer, right? Anyone who worked for him, even if they were formerly enslaved, he was an employer. He was no longer an enslaver, and he had to pay wages to our ancestors. Okay, let's stop real quick. Let's do questions. Any questions? I'll stop sharing again. Any questions about who enslaved the Virginia enslavers? And then I'll move to the Maryland side. Or just any question in general, any question you might have. I often think of the richness of the history, the complexity of how we all came to exist is because our ancestors were transported from Maryland and from Virginia and brought to Arkansas, and they literally created Arkansas City. Our ancestors were the unpaid workers, who built Arkansas City, and then, everything that came out of it, because literally when they got to Arkansas, there were only 4 acres that were even developed, like 4 acres. There was no, nothing. They were enslaved. They helped build up everything. They are the pioneers. They are the pioneers. Can't nobody take it. Nobody. I done the research. I know. They might not say their names, which is why I say in this presentation, we speak their names. We are their legacy. We are the richness of what they started, and we continue to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Any question, anybody, and then I'll jump into the Maryland side, and we're actually like almost done because we'll have time to, everybody can introduce themselves and go through. And how am I related to everybody?
No.
Yes, Ray?
Yeah, I don't have a question, but I have a statement. It is amazing that they was on those type of boats.
What?
902 miles.
Listen, let me tell you something even more amazing. Let me tell you something even more amazing. However you were related to Commodore Perry Bailey, Jerry's father, Commodore was a baby. He was an infant when they were traveling.
And survived.
I was like, whoa, so that's really deep. If he had died, I wouldn't be talking to none of y'all because we wouldn't even exist.
What a beautiful thing.
Yes.
I had to show my wife. I had to go in the room and show my wife.
Oh, beautiful. Any other question before I'm gonna move on to Maryland? So again, I want to make sure we have time. Okay, here we go. Back in, y'all. Back down the rabbit hole. Now we'll go to the Maryland enslavers. Perry Bailey, Commodore Perry Bailey's father, was enslaved in Maryland. And I went through and showed his certificate of freedom briefly before. But I do want to talk about his enslaver was actually a Quaker. George Impey Dawson and his brother, Impey Dawson, were some of the first white people to inhabit Maryland. And they actually had a lot of land, but they were Quakers. And so, you know, the Quakers were kind of viewed as more altruistic or kinder enslavers because they most frequently freed their slaves when they died. It doesn't seem kinder to me, but anyway, that's what, you know, they say. And so George Impey Dawson never married. He died in 1825, which is again when our ancestor was freed. He owned several slaves, including our ancestor Perry Bailey, who again he freed. George Dawson's his family were the founding settlers in Maryland, and they owned quite a lot of land. Now let's go to the land in Arkansas that was in our family, the Baileys. Predominantly, we're looking at the brothers. Jim Bailey was the oldest, Commodore Perry Bailey was the middle son, brother, and then Isaac Bailey, who ended up being in politics, was the baby. So first, let's look at some land that Isaac Bailey acquired in 1879. So Isaac Bailey, born in 1847, he acquired land valued at $475 in 1879. And this was what they call part of the Hot Springs Reservation, which meant it was formerly Indian territory. And because he also went to college, Isaac Bailey and I say great-grandpa Jerry were the two Bailey men who went to college. So he was, you know, a little more educated and began to learn how to make his way. And remember, he was the youngest, born in 1847. So he was able to really do more than his older brothers, but they were very close, the three brothers, Commodore Perry, the oldest boy, Jim, and Isaac. Now, in 1885, all of the brothers went together to buy some land. Now, I don't know why they paid $5,000 for the land, because land was very cheap, but this is the actual deed of the land, and the arrow that I show you shows the signature of our Commodore Perry Bailey and on down, Isaac Bailey, and both of their wives also had to sign this document. But they had quite a bit of land. And actually, cousin Chris, who I mentioned at the beginning, she and I have talked a lot about this particular land. We believe that the land was located near what was going to be the railroad, where the railroad was coming through. And they ended up, what do you call it? Having the land taken from them in the end. But anyway, there was a lot of land that Isaac Bailey ended up buying from 1890. He bought and sold land frequently. I mean, he was really a wheeler dealer for land. These are 3 different deeds, and there are many other deeds, like really tons of them, where he was constantly buying and selling land as a Black man in 1890 in Dermot and Pine Bluff. Now, here's something that was perhaps the best thing I think I found was Commodore Perry's wife, Perry Bailey's wife, Virginia, became a landowner at 91 in 1897. And this is the actual deed showing the land that she purchased, which it was in Dermot. And actually, we think that she didn't purchase it. We know how she got it, but at any rate, it was really fascinating. And James, the oldest brother, James, Commodore, and Isaac, James also bought land in the Arkansas homestead cash entry, and he got his land in 1882. And he got 40 acres of land in 1882. 40 acres, okay? He was the oldest of the three brothers, Commodore's older brother. So when I was doing this research, and I kept thinking, wow, maybe the enslaved, you know, the Reconstruction didn't give us 40 acres and a mule, but certainly our family were very land savvy, and they ended up getting quite a bit of land through various means, purchase, you know, going in, buying stuff together, consolidating. So land ownership and predominantly home ownership was very prominent in the history of our ancestors. They were getting themselves a hold of some land, one way or the other. Now let's look at politics. So this picture is the only picture of the three brothers that we have. Why? Because Isaac, the youngest, ended up being a member of the House of Representatives in Arkansas in 1885 during Black Reconstruction. Come on, let's give it up for that. Woo! Okay, yes, come on now. Let me just say, and it was so significant. He was formerly enslaved in 1847 in Arkansas, and 38 years later, he is suited and booted as a member of the House of Representatives. This is Commodore Perry Bailey's brother. Remember, Commodore Perry Bailey was the father of Jerry Bailey. Jerry Bailey was the father of Bennie Bailey, and so you kind of make that connection. This was Commodore's brother, baby brother Isaac, okay? And I was able to travel to the State House, which is the first Capitol building for Little Rock, you know, Arkansas, and he is on the wall there among the big picture with all of the members at that time. And actually, here's a picture of it. This is the actual picture that's in the State House. All these little pictures, and I put a circle if you can see him with all these white folks. And he's right there on the wall on the second floor of the State House in Little Rock. Schools and education. So education was really, really important. You know, particularly as we became, you know, free. Isaac was the first to go to college, and then Grandpa Jerry went to college, and then they continue with education in their family. And so Isaac Bailey was actually married to a woman named Sue Bailey, who I don't have a good picture of here, but I'll break this down more. This picture in the top corner is a school that Isaac Bailey's wife, Sue Bailey, started, and they trained teachers. So those folks in this picture are people who were training to be teachers. I'll mention the woman in the lower left later. This picture in the middle where it says copy of scholarship record, and the picture there is actually Isaac Bailey's son, who went to Howard University. Now, here's something so fascinating because, you know, we didn't know. I went to Howard University and my sister went to Howard University. And of course, we thought we were the first people to go to Howard University in our family, until I found this and said, oh, our great cousin went to Howard University in 1915. So like, seriously, we just didn't know. And also, this picture on the right is Uncle Isaac, and here's the Branch Normal College, Arkansas Industrial University, which is where great Uncle Isaac and Grandpa Jerry both went to that college. So education was very important. I'm going to mention the woman in the black and white. I'll mention her in just a bit, so I won't mention her right now. But I'll move here to more of, these are the teachers and the students, because great Uncle Isaac and his wife, Susie, the picture in the middle, they ended up making a school, and they had, you know, small little schoolhouse. That's it over there on the right in the bottom, because they knew the way to continue upward mobility, or, to equalize the playing field was to get educated, to try to get land, to, to try to move forward. So now here is, I'm gonna go back to this woman here. Actually, this woman here in the black and white, actually, let me move this picture and put it on this next thing here. So let me just put this here. So this little picture here, this woman is a woman named Susie Bailey. This is Isaac, great uncle Isaac, who was in the House of Representatives. That's his daughter. Well, she ended up being kind of famous. Okay. She ended up marrying a very prominent Black minister and theology professor named Howard Thurman. Some of you, if you're really into theology and religion, you may have heard of him. And they, as a couple, were able to be the first Black people to travel to India to meet Gandhi as representatives of the United States. And this picture over here on the right is Gandhi, and that's our great cousin Susie Bailey, meeting him in India, the very first African Americans to have an audience with him in 1935. Okay, that's before Martin Luther King Jr. That's way before. And so our great uncle Isaac, who was in the Black Reconstruction, he was a very connected person. So anybody ever heard of Booker T. Washington? So there was a National Negro Business League, and our great uncle Isaac was a member of that. And this circle is Booker T. Washington, among many other very prominent African-American men. And the back of the photo says, photo, Hot Springs, Arkansas, 1912, photo taken by Isaac Bailey Jr. That would have been great uncle Isaac's son. C, Booker T. Washington, and then it lists J.C. Napier. These are all some very famous Black, and it says National Negro Business League. And so this picture, I have a theory. I don't have proof of this, you all, but I just think this might be true. The person in the middle, I know that that's our great uncle Isaac, who was in the politics. I know that's him because when I went to Atlanta to do the research, plus it just looks like him. I know that the little boy with the arrow, I know that's his son, Isaac Jr. I know that because when I compare the two pictures, I can tell that's him. The two other men in the red circles, I think are Isaac's older brothers. I think that because all these people are touching. I think that. Again, this is just really a wild theory. Nobody else in this picture of Black men are touching. Now, I could be totally wrong, and it could be that some of the men who aren't touching are relatives or brothers, Commodore and his older brother, James. I look at this picture and think that these are family members because the only young person in the picture is great uncle Isaac's little son, Isaac. No other youngster is here. But again, when you find old pictures and there's nothing written on them, you can't verify it all the time. I hope to be able to verify it one day. So if any of you have heard of the Old Mound Cemetery, there's actually a plaque there of that was put there by our great cousin Chris, that states that our great uncle Isaac was a member of the House of Representatives, and he's actually buried at the Old Mound Cemetery. And you can drive there and see it. It was put up, I forget the year, I think it was in the 80s, but at any rate, it says, also buried here in unmarked graves are the parents and brother of State Representative I.G. Bailey, who served in the Arkansas legislature from 1885 to 1887. This is on the marker. It's there for anybody who comes there to see, and our ancestors are there and buried there and acknowledged as part of Arkansas state history. Those are our people. And again, how are you related to Bennie Bailey? Was he your parents' father? Was he your father? Was he your uncle? Was he your great-grandfather? Fill in the blank. Here are a couple of fun facts. How many times do these names show up in the family history? And that's just up to what I knew. So the name James shows up twice. The name Perry shows up 3 times. Sanford twice. Isaac 5 times. The name Jerry shows up twice. Macie shows up twice. Susie shows up twice. Christabel twice. And the name Julius shows up 5 times. Who had the most children? James W. Bailey, Commodore's older brother. His daughter had 12 children. Commodore Perry and Ann Bailey had 10. And then Isaac G. Bailey and his 2 wives had 10. And Jerry Bailey technically had 10 with 2 different women. So I'm going to share my DNA results, and then we'll go to, I'll stop sharing my screen and we'll go to questions and introductions and stuff like that. And thank you all for hanging with me. So DNA results, that means that some percentage of my DNA results you also represent, but it's a smaller percentage, you know, as it, well, if we're in the same, anyway, don't let me try to break it down. Let me just share it. Okay. The test I took covers both maternal and paternal sides of the tree, and I use ancestry.com. So 38%, well, definitely we are from African heritage. For me, 38% was Nigeria, 20% was Mali, Cameroon, Congo, and Benin were 10%, where there's some Ireland and some Scottish there, because again, some of our ancestors were listed as mulatto. So that's where the Scottish and Ireland, you know, so there was that mix, you know, we know, right? So that's there. And even Wales, Norway, and France were 2%. So again, it definitely then supports where some, when we go far back, they were listed as, unfortunately, as mulatto, and we know how that happened. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I hope you guys got something meaningful and valuable out of this. So I'll start with any questions about the second part, and then I'll go into introductions. Any questions? Yes,
Yes,
who's
I have a question.
Lois? Who was that? Oh,
Okay.
Estella? Who's talking? Say your name.
Lois.
Okay, Lois.
Again. How, now, where is Old Mound Cemetery located at?
You know what? I don't have the address, but I certainly, you know, can Google it and just find that out.
Okay.
But it's not too far, I know, because cousin Chris, who actually lobbied and really made that a reality, she was very, very active in advocating for our family history. It's not that far from Little Rock, because she just, when she was talking about it, she didn't make it seem like it was a long drive.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Any other questions? Who's talking?
Unique Junior. Well, the family calls me. How you doing, Cuz?
Right.
I would like to know if there's any way I can possibly get copies of this from you so I can teach my children.
So what this recording is going to happen to it is it will be uploaded to YouTube as an unlisted video, meaning only people who have the link can see it. And so you can share the video with really any family member at any time.
All right. Hey, Uncle Ray.
You can teach away. Okay, thank you for that question. Okay, who's next? Question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I do. I got one.
Yes, cousin Ray.
Yeah. So I heard you say that it'll be uplinked to YouTube.
Correct.
And if you got something you said, you
The
can get
link.
it.
If you have the link. Oh, I'm gonna send everybody the link. I'll really send it to cousin Lois because she was my point, and then she can start to share it. You know, then folks will get it and send it and share it, you know, to family members.
All right. That'll work.
Yep. Any other questions? Something you heard? Girl, I still don't know how they related to me. Which is fine. Listen, I can't tell you how long it took for me to keep
I think
together.
How long did it take you to do this?
Okay, that's a great question, because I'm technically still doing it, but the bulk of it, it took me, started in 2019, it took me about 18 months.
Really?
I was so blessed. I flew to Atlanta to the Emory University archives in October 2019. And then we know the pandemic hit. So I was able to do so much research before the pandemic hit. And then the rest of it I did on the internet. And I actually just came from Arkansas. What was it, 2 weeks ago, where I went to the Arkansas State Archives and did some research there. And I'm coming back to Arkansas actually, anyway, in like next month in July. So yeah, it took about 18 months to really do everything you see here.
Well, thank you, Denise.
You are so welcome.
Really.
Pull us all out the dark, right? Like, what?
That's right. You know, and for all those good talkers in the family, right? We must have got that from Frederick Douglass.
Come on now. Well, you know, I'm still trying to confirm, are they cousins? I really think they are. And I'm still in communication with the Maryland State Archives because they won't let you come to the building right now. So I've been trying to email them back and forth, but in about a month, they're going to release the restriction, and I'm going to go there and see. I'm going to make more than one trip because I'm going to try to figure out if there's a way for me to prove that our ancestor was at least a cousin to Frederick Douglass, who again, his name was Bailey. So, you know, we'll see. Cross our fingers.
Well, that's great.
Any other question? Okay, so I don't see a question. So all right. So I'm gonna go in the order on my screen. So Shamika Spencer, unmute yourself and you can tell us who you told us before, but I'm gonna write it down. Who, your Bailey connection. Okay, wait, you're still muted. Like hit it one more time, maybe hit it 2 more times. Testing, still not unmuted. Come on, be our friend, technology. There you go.
Hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Bennie Bailey is my grandfather.
And your name?
I'm actually a Harold, but Estella Bailey is my mom.
Wow.
Okay. Harold,
I'm the
and
son of
Harold, what's your last name?
Harold, Harrell.
Oh, Harold, Harrell. And what's your last name?
That's my last name, Harold. First name, Eric, E-R-I-C.
E-R-I-C?
Yes.
Okay,
And
thank you.
Estella's my mom.
I got it. I wrote it down. Okay, great. Now, Ariel,
Okay.
thank you so much. You can mute yourself, Ariel.
I'm not sure if she's still on here, but I'm her sister though.
Can you hear me?
Wait. Okay, there you go, Ariel. Go for it.
Okay. So I'm Ariel, Arieelle, and my last name is Thomas.
Okay, and you said Ethel Bailey, Bennie Bailey's daughter, is your grandmother, and
Yes.
then who is your mother?
Shelby, Shelvey, and my little cousin right here wants to introduce herself to you.
Hi, little cousin.
Hey. She acted shy.
Okay. Well, hello.
Hey.
Hey. Do you want to say your name?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Arthaniel. Let me spell it out because it's long.
Okay.
It's RODCERRIAUNA.
Rosariana.
Yes, ma'am.
Boom. I got it. Okay, Ray.
Yeah. So
Said that your mother was Clara May Hart.
yeah, my mother was Clara May Hart, and
Lily.
her mother was Lily.
Lily Hart is her mother,
Yes.
and Lily's mother was Lily Ann Haywood. That would have been your great grandmother.
Right.
Okay, and then Unique.
Clara May was my grandmother.
Okay, hold on. Your name first.
My name is William Carter Jr. Clara May was my grandmother, raised my uncle.
Okay, your grandmother.
Yep.
Okay. And so who was your mom?
Oh, my mother is Altheria. I'm related to you through my father, though, William. But Altheria was my mother. Her name is
And then your
Ethel.
father? Your father?
Yes, I'm related. Yes, my father's William Carter Sr. I'm Junior. I'm talking.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And then
All right.
Macie.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you said Eloise?
Yeah, Marquise, Eloise is Clara May's oldest daughter.
Okay. That's your mom.
Yes.
Okay. And this was your grandmother, Clara May.
And then Lily and so forth.
Yeah, and going on back.
Yeah, and again, Ray is my uncle.
Got you. Okay. Very, very nice to meet you. Estella.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, I'm Bennie Bailey daughter.
Yes.
Yes, I'm one of your aunt niece. I remember meeting her a couple times, Aunt Ethel.
Ain't Ethel? Listen, Aunt Ethel was a pistol. Oh,
I think they all were.
Oh, I think they were. Yeah, very much so. Very proud, very proud
Good people, but good people because they, good proud people. Yeah, you could tell.
Very proud. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Absolutely.
nice to meet you.
Cousin Lois.
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, good. Do your intro, but I guess everybody knows.
Lois Bailey Coleman. Bennie Bailey was my father, and Jerry Bailey is my grandfather.
And Commodore Perry Bailey is your great grandfather, and Perry Bailey is your great 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 grandfather. Take it all away now.
Yes, Lord. I'm so glad. I was so excited, and I was so glad to pass that out. I ran off all those sheets and passed them out at the little gathering we had. And everybody that wasn't there, you missed it. We had a great time. It was, I don't know, it was right at, I don't know, it could have been 200 people. I'll say about 100.
Lovely.
100 and something people, all Baileys.
Well, listen, we'll talk in a minute. I'm going to mention my dates when I'm going to be there. Yeah. Okay. Patricia Powell.
Hi. I am Bennie Bailey is my uncle. His brother Warren, they call Dago.
Yeah.
That was my grandfather.
Okay, so Uncle, hold on, look, let me get my family thing up here. Warner?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So Warner was born 1906, passed in 19, Bertha, he was married to a woman named Bertha Scott?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yeah, I got him. Now, listen to him.
Amen.
Okay, now, so Bennie Bailey was your uncle, and so now you
great
Warner.
No,
great uncle, and Warner was your grandfather.
My grandfather.
Okay. Pleasure to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you too.
Okay, Ebony.
Hello.
Hi.
My mom's name is Brenda Bailey. So Bennie was my grandfather.
Say it again for me.
Brenda
Bailey, and you said who's your grandfather?
Bennie.
Oh, grandpa. Okay. Oh, so this Brenda is her father.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, Bennie is Brenda's father.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Kaylee. I want to get everybody. Kaylee, can you unmute yourself? And then I had somebody just on an iPhone. I can't. Kaylee, are you able to unmute yourself? No. And then there's somebody on here, just iPhone. Can you? Okay, there you go. Hi.
Hey, my name is Jasmine Bailey, and Ethel Bailey is my grandmother.
So, oh, you were saying your Ariel's sister. Okay. Okay, let me put on here Ariel's sister. Okay. Okay, Kaylee, are you able? I don't want to leave you out if you can unmute yourself. Okay, so she's still maybe working on that. So this was really became a true labor of love. And I'm going to tell you all a quick little story of how I actually got started. You have something to Stella?
Yeah, Kaylee is my 9-year-old granddaughter.
Okay. Okay.
And her mom is my daughter. They live in Conway, Arkansas, and that's Kaylee is on there.
No,
so that's my granddaughter.
Perfect.
Yes.
I'm gonna tell you a quick story of how I really started doing this. So as I said earlier, I am a professor at Howard University. I've been a professor for 21 years. I teach in the theater. I've been an actress. I've been on TV. I've done all these different things. Well, anyway, we were doing a play in my department, and basically my boss, the chair, asked me to do some research for the play. Well, the play told the story of a group of Black women who left the South to move to Nebraska. To move to Kansas. Well, I'm from Nebraska, so I said, hey, I remember my grandmother talking about how, her siblings went to Chicago and she left Arkansas and came to Nebraska. And I said, there's some similarities. And the only reason why I started doing the research, because I was curious just to try to see what might be similar from the play, just a little bit, like just a little bit. I wasn't really even trying to do all this. I was just kind of got a little bit curious because I had to do something for the production. Well, when I found like one piece of information, I just went down a rabbit hole. I just was just so blown away. I said, well, I wonder if there's more. And I just kept doing that. And every time I would find something, I would go, well, I wonder if there's more. And I just kept going and going and going, oh my God. And once I found cousin Chris, and she had already been doing the research since 1979 and had done all this stuff, I wanted to honor her because she told me, the ancestors sent you to me because I can't do it anymore. She said, I'm 84. I really am at the end. And she really almost cried. Like, how could I turn my back on her? I was just like, you got it. I'm going to do it. I'm your girl. So, and when I came down there 2 weeks ago, that's where I was able to record her, which you all heard the recording. I sat in her house and she was so proud because she said that when she was doing it, everybody thought she was crazy. Why would you spend all that time doing something nobody paying you? And she said she thought it would never amount to anything. And she said, when you came, meaning me, you made me see that all the work I had done had value. I'm like, yes, what you talking about? It's so many of us, nobody told us or didn't really talk. And so we kind of had to piece it all together, like a puzzle. And there's still some missing pieces, but I'm so proud to be a part of a family with all of you and to know what our ancestors were able to survive. They were able to survive traveling from Virginia on a flatboat to Arkansas. They were able to survive living on a plantation, but simultaneously building the little town that really created, the beginnings of Arkansas state legislature and everything. They were able to survive and be a part of the Black Reconstruction in Arkansas. So much. So I just am so appreciative and thankful. So anybody want to ask a question? I scheduled 2 hours. We have about 20 minutes. Feel free. You want to just mention something or something how about this? Something that just made you feel proud or something you just didn't ever know. You can just raise your hand and say okay, hold on, that's William. William, you got the mic.
All right, thank you. I went to Arkansas the first time 13 years ago with Macie. Honestly, I felt so good just to even know where my family came from. I've always been in New York. So to see that it really touched my heart, you know. And then when I came back down a couple of weeks ago, it was really still beautiful, you know. And I just want to say I love all of you. I love all of my family, even the ones I don't know. I love you all.
Man, I was so sad I missed it. I almost tried to change my trip, but because Cousin Chris was so up in age and she had been waiting for me to get there, I decided not to change it because, you know, I just wanted to honor her because the trip really was about seeing her and going to the Arkansas State Archives. But like I said, I'm coming back. I'll be there for 2 or 3 days, I think July 25th. Cousin Lois, I'll send you the information. I'm definitely coming to see Cousin Lois, and I'm happy to see anybody.
I should be there too. I should be there too at the same time. So hopefully we get to see each other.
All right.
Yep. All right.
Next, something
love you, School Cake.
Something you heard that moved you as well. Anybody? Or Marquise, is that you waving? Are you waving?
Yes.
Okay. You got the mic, Marquise.
As far as move me coming down here, anytime we get a chance to come down here is a beautiful thing. We enjoy ourselves. Some of the Southerners look at us funny, being from New York, like, why you want to be down here? But it's quiet, it's peaceful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's tranquil. And sometimes we can't get that in New York. Outside of that, I wanted to ask you, Denise, did you put this in like a family tree format?
Well, it's in Ancestry. So literally, you know, it's huge because there's so many documents that we don't even have time for me to share them all in this format, but anybody can be given access to Ancestry. But when you get in there, you just kind of got to teach yourself how to move around in it. And it's pretty intuitive. It's not a hard thing to learn. So I'm happy to, I'll give you guys my phone number and you can text me and then I'll just give you the link. I mean, it's a way to give you access to Ancestry without it. You don't have to get an account. You don't have to pay for nothing. You can just go in and look around. So I'm happy to do that. So let me give you my phone number. 202. I'll repeat it. 202. 202. 321. 321. I'm just repeating it. 321 0779. 0779. So text me, and what you're texting me is your email because it's by email. I have to put your email in this little thing, which will give you access to be able to just, Marquise, you go be in there hours. It's so much. But it was, you know, I tried to find a way to do it. I mean, I pay for the Ancestry, I mean, because I don't mind doing it, but the other stuff, it was just too much. There was no, Ancestry made the most sense because it's just like they already have the software. And I mean, you know, it's kind of, like I said, easy to pop around in there once you get it. I got something. Yes, Jasmine, I see you. I will definitely share with anybody. Okay. Anything else, Marquise? Did you have any other comment or question? You went back on mute, Marquise. I see you, Ray.
I know it's kind of early, but I heard people already talking about next year. So for those who didn't come, please make arrangements to come. Yeah, because it can only grow and get better.
Marquise. So we, you know, Lois, I don't know how I'm unofficially appointing Lois because Lois is like, but I think, you know, if we could know in enough time, I mean, and I'm happy to be on any committee. I don't really care. I'll do whatever. I'll figure out whatever.
It was just such a short notice. We have been talking about it for a long time. So we just
get some dates and let's really like make it pop. We're talking
together something.
You know what I'm saying? Like shindig level, you know.
Yeah, and then with the pandemic, you wasn't able to get a real big place. So we just kind of threw something together, really kind of for the people around here. So we nearby. So we could plan for a bigger one. Okay. Now, it may not be next year, it may be year after next. I don't know about
let's see. Let's not discount next year. Let's just talk. Now we got Ray and then cousin Patricia. Ray, you're first.
Yeah, you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, that phone number again. I'm sorry, I had to run and get
No
a pen.
problem. 202-321
Uh-huh.
0779.
0779. Another one. And now how you related to me again?
So I am your cousin. Okay. I mean, we could go fourth, fifth, third,
No,
whatever.
you were talking about that you had your mom or grandmom was.
I'm going to tell you how. So your great grandmother, Lily Bailey, was married to my great grandfather.
God.
His daughter, Ethel, was my grandmother. Your mother, no, your grandmother, Lily, was my grandmother's sister.
Amen.
Oldest sister.
Let me ask you
Oldest
this.
Oldest sister.
Denise.
Yes.
Your grandmother was alive in the 70s and the 60s.
Oh yeah. My grandmother didn't die till 1992. 90.
And she lived out in Arkansas?
She did.
No, the reason why I asked is because I remembered the name, and we came down there from New York in station wagons and everything back in the late 60s and
Well,
early.
let me tell you this. My grandmother didn't live in Arkansas again until the 80s, but Claire May, your mother, came to Omaha, Nebraska, and stayed with my grandmother.
Okay, that's where I was born.
You was born in Omaha?
Yeah.
I was born in Omaha.
Yeah, I was born in Omaha.
Your mother stayed in my grandmother's house. Because we used to talk about Claire May all the time.
That's why I remember the name. Okay.
Yeah, that's her favorite niece. Oh, she talked about Claire May.
That's why I remember the name. That's good that I learned that. Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right.
That's something.
I'm gonna text.
All right, Omaha.
No doubt.
Okay, Patricia.
Hey, I have a question.
Okay, hold on. We have an order. Patricia, and then Ariel, and then William. Patricia, you have the mic.
Okay. My first thing is that what I was excited to hear was the places we originally come from and everything, and the places, because I never heard anything about Arkansas City and stuff like that. But I knew we had people in Durham. My dad was always tell us that. But Arkansas City, I never heard it.
Oh yeah. Correct.
And then to hear somebody was. Then to know that I have an uncle, somebody
great uncle, great
uncle, yeah, to hear that. So I'm ready now to go take this trip so I can take my picture standing up under.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
now here's the technical thing. Because the current state capitol building wasn't built in 1885, he actually served in what they call the State House Museum. That white building downtown, in downtown Little Rock, that was the first state capitol of the building of Arkansas. So he actually went into that building, served, cast his vote. He had to show up every Monday to participate in legislature.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And the second thing is that we are definitely is going to have a reunion next year. I know Lois Ann has kind of skeptical about it, but she's gonna be on board because I'm on board.
Okay, I hear you. We're gonna work it out.
We are going to have one. We already talked about it, and we are going to set up a Zoom meeting for those who are interested in being a part of it within the next month.
Okay.
So we can go ahead and get it started. Those on here would know.
Okay, Ariel and then William.
Hi. Yeah. Hi. Okay. This may be a funny question, but my grandma just left out. She wanted me to ask. She said she wondered if we were related to Pearl Bailey.
You know what? We are not. We are not related to Pearl Bailey. But it's not a bad question. I mean, you just start thinking the related surnames, but we are not. I'll just say this way. So far, there's no evidence that we are related to Pearl Bailey. So far, there's no evidence that we're related to Frederick Douglass. The reason why I say we may be is because our enslaved ancestor was in the exact same county of Maryland that Frederick Douglass's, people were. So it's a good possibility that they may have been cousins, but not Pearl. But that's not a bad question. Okay, Estella? Oh, you were just.
Yeah. I was very intrigued about the education part, saying that our grandpa Jerry went to college and didn't finish because, you know, I heard, I don't know about the other family members, you know, like they were like, you know, he always would, you know, make sure the kids went out to work instead of go to school, you know. So, you know, I know he might have made those decisions because of, you know, the condition and everything.
Yeah, that's what
You know,
I
you
often
always
think.
look for take care of family first. And I want to know that Miss Chris lady, what was her name and what relation was she?
Her married last name is Eatman. However, however, her mother was named Irene Bailey, and her mother's father was Nicholas Bailey.
Nicholas Bailey.
Nicholas Bailey, who was Grandpa Jerry's brother, youngest brother. Well, actually, second to the youngest. My bad.
So she's still living in Little Rock?
She is.
Is she still living?
She still lives in Little Rock.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And I see you, Ariel. She's the oldest living. William, you got the mic.
No, I just wanted to. Patricia actually answered the question, so I'm good. Thank you.
Perfect. Ariel.
I was gonna mention Troy Lee Bailey is Bennie Bailey's son, and he wanted to be on the Zoom, but he couldn't. But he really planned a lot of the family reunion out. He had the idea. Yes, he had the idea of having the family reunion yesterday, so he wasn't able to come on the Zoom, but we're gonna make sure he's able to see it once you upload it to YouTube.
Fantastic.
But that was his dream, to get the family together, and he did that.
Fantastic. Thank you. Anyone else? What was your favorite part? What are you like? Yup. Yup.
Well, I wanted to tell Ariel to tell everybody about she had created a family page on Facebook, and tell them about that.
Family page?
Okay, didn't you make a page for when the reunion or something?
No, what kind of page? I don't have a page.
We didn't do it. We talked about it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I thought y'all had did it.
No, we talked about it, but it's in the
nobody
making.
mentioned the page to me.
Yeah, it's in the making. It's in the making. I get with you, Eric.
Okay. Who is this? Okay, that's Kaylee Galaxy. Okay, all right. We're just about 10 minutes left. If anybody has any closing comments or something you would love to know more about, I'll jot it down and put it in my research list, because once you get down the rabbit hole, it's hard to get out. So I like to have new things to look for.
I just appreciate you taking time out to do this for the family. Like I say, we've often wondered about, because like you say, our parents didn't talk about their parents. Sometimes they act like they didn't know their grandparents or didn't know anything about them. But, I'm glad that you came and shed a lot of light on our family tree. I just appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, we all appreciate it. We appreciate it and love you, and looking forward to meeting you in person.
I love you back. Trust me. All right. No other. Yeah. Go ahead. Who was that? A gentleman?
I said, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right, good people. So we're going to all sign off here. And I'll look to get some correspondence from Cousin Lois or anyone about creating something for next year. And again, I will be there July 25th. I'll let Cousin Lois know, and we'll kind of go from there. But anybody can text me. Honestly, you have my number. I love text messages, so I text back. It's been such a joy to spend some time with you all, my extended family. We are good people. We come from wonderful stock. We speak their names often and proudly and loudly. And thank you to everybody.
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. And God bless everybody. God bless.
Salute, salute,
Okay, I'm
salute.
about to call you. I'm about to call you right now.